What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, the Buckets Pilled Brainiac here, and we're back with episode 44 of the video game therapy series. Um, yeah, there's a lot of social talk around different pills and things these days as a reference to the Matrix, and maybe I'll talk about what being buckets pilled means later. But yeah, I'm not red pill, white pill, blue pill, red fish, blue fish, one fish, two fish. I'm none of that shit. I'm buckets pilled. I'm my own rules. That's just kind of how I like to do most things. I don't like to fall into a clique of some kind and identify myself as anything. But I don't know. If we have time, I'll talk about that at some point in one of these episodes, sooner or later. But I have a few other things I want to talk about instead. I've been uh, um, I hopefully I don't get too fired up today. I don't know. Sometimes some of these things really get me going. But so we'll see where how heated some of these things make me. But the first thing I kind of want to conjecture, and this isn't really even like a conjecture. It's more so just kind of a statement or belief that I'm starting to kind of think about, and uh, I don't know, kind of see how much it makes sense. So I obviously spend a lot of time thinking about and concerned with and what have you. Insert emotion here about technology and big tech and all this other stuff. And again, like I said, I'm kind of in a privacy bubble these days where I'm learning a lot about how crappy our modern day privacy is compared to other generations. But I've come to a conclusion or a idea that technology companies, Google, Amazon, I suppose Facebook, it would kind of depend on where, I guess certain companies are more guilty of this than others, but all of these companies, I think, are, people just think of them as like, oh, Google's the search engine people, and, Amazon sells us crappy plastic Chinese knockoffs of everything, that kind of like thought with all of it. I think it almost be more accurate to define them as like data companies. Because that's really what they're doing. And like part of what I came to this conclusion from was if you're in technology, maybe you're not. So Google Cloud, more or less, it's just it gives you access to a bunch of Google's computing power. They have a shit ton of data centers, so they provision out a lot of this access through their Google Cloud platform. If you've ever looked at that, and Amazon is equally, if not more guilty than this, you're aware that there are, I mean, when I say a like ridiculous amount of products, I mean a ridiculous amount of products. Like there are, I don't even want to know, like there's probably thousands of different like offshoots of different products that all have their own like niche use cases. And if they were, and in my view, if they were really technology companies, they would be creating technology products that do certain things. But the issue is a lot of these things do pretty much the exact same, like just different variations of the same thing that have different cost structures. And I swear they make it purposefully confusing such that you're pretty much bound to overpay for whatever it is that you're going to have them use. And because they have such a grasp on like computing as a whole, because they buy out all these computer parts and have these huge data centers, then you're kind of stuck. It is the cheapest option, but still like, and more reliable than just hosting on your own hardware. So it's annoying that you have to use that. But I'm convinced the product development actually goes like this. So you would think it might go like, oh, you have an idea for a product, or you kind of discover some kind of market. Google does, and then they, create a product or something that addresses that. I'm convinced it's more so that they do whatever they can to gather as much data from their people as possible, and then make products to sell to those people. So whatever it is that, but it all begins with the collection of as much data as they possibly can, and so that's why they're a lot of times they're generous with these huge free tiers and these huge kind of like, oh, just here's a little taste, free of charge, don't worry. and all of that is, I think, just to get more data on things. Because I think if they realize if they have enough data about a person, they can almost, do these spear phishing advertisements where they can target to a ridiculously specific extent, to business owners, individuals, anyone that wants anything, their own AI model for some dumb thing. They almost have like spear phishing level accuracy of data that they can use to peddle whatever new product that they make. And if you have spent time internally at Google, not that I worked at Google, but the way a lot of these companies are structured is they all have these teams, and there are teams within teams within teams. There's like, I don't know, like 100 different or 1,000 different teams, or not 1,000, probably like hundreds of different teams within the Google sphere or the Amazon or sphere or Microsoft sphere, and they all are busy making these different products with a ridiculous amount of overlap between them. And I think it's just so that they can have these like targeted advertising attacks. I call them attacks because it's advertising, but these targeted attempts at getting people to buy things that are, more specifically suited for certain use cases. But it all comes back to them starting with as much data as they can possibly get on everybody, which is, again, the concerning part from a privacy advocate's point of view, that they don't really begin with like, oh, here's like a helpful idea. Here's something that's like good for society. Here's something that is, a good product to have, or that would save people money. It's no, we have a bunch of data. What are they going to buy, right? Even if it is stupid and is useless and a waste of time. Like a lot of the products like on AWS or on Google Cloud, they are crappy. Like they're dumb. Like you'd almost be better off, like in not even the long term, you'd be better off immediately if you had just like you just bought like a ThinkPad and ran a server off a Think. Like, it's hilarious how bad some of these products are, but they're not making it because there's some like desperate need for it. They're making it because they have data and they know they can sell to you, so they're going to do that. So it's my conjecture. You can call it. I don't even know what would be an accurate way of describing it. I think that just big data, big tech companies are more accurately described as just data companies. Their sole objective is to collect as much data as they can, and then from there they make a bunch of crappy products to sell, and their business kind of goes from there. But I think it all starts with the collection of a bunch of data about people. So this is business owners, individuals, users, everybody. They just want as much information as they can so that they can make a new team that is do whatever. And they prune off these teams all the time, so people get laid off, and it's not even that they're bad employees, they're on teams that are making dumb products. So I don't know much more about the internals than that, but it all kind of makes sense if you frame them first as companies that exist to collect data, and then from there they just again make whatever products they think are going to sell. So maybe it's a social media company that they're going to make, or maybe it's something else, or some email client, or whatever, or some weird API, or some language model. And it's not because they think it's good for society, or if it's even like, it's just good because they know they can sell it, because they have your data and they know you more intimately than your significant other or your mom does, which is shocking. That's not shocking. It's just sad. I don't even know. It's just not good. I guess it's the easiest way to think about it. But anyway, I just wanted to feel like I needed to share that. It's not even an epiphany. It's just a thought that like it's you don't often like kind of think of big companies like Amazon and Google as like data companies, but that's really just what they are at heart. Is they're there just to get data. They don't, and then off of that they've generated all these weird products and all this other bullshit. But it always starts with data. So anyway, yeah. I suppose in the eyes of progress, I want to also note that all progress is not created equal. Some people tend to take an absolute stance on this and saying that like progress is progress is progress is progress. It's all good. It's all like if it's progress in one shape or another, it's good. And this is a really dumb argument for a lot of reasons. But again, because I'm kind of the social media boogeyman here, the easiest example I can point to is there's quote unquote progress being made that is objectively not progress. And again, I'm going to point and laugh and bark at social media again, but meeting people online, like taking the sociality or the social interactions of humans, the social well-being of humans, and digitizing that online is a catastrophic failure, is a joke, and is bad. Just doesn't work, right? I mean, ask anyone if they feel more like they're more part of a community now online than they might have been, at any point in the past. And some people don't have anything to compare it to, right? Like some people that grew up just with only on technology or only on the internet don't even know what it's like to be, on an actual real life like sports team or on a church or whatever random like group that such and such is a part of. They've never even experienced that, so they have nothing to compare it to. So they think that a weird message board about their favorite types of anime is like the pinnacle of social interactions, which that's not it. And I'm not even a boomer, and it was better in the boomer days. So I think the whole progress is always good. It just falls apart very quickly, especially if you look at a lot of the negative ways that it's affected us. Not to say that there is no positives, but there's certainly a lot of non-ignorable negatives that I believe outweigh the positives of it. And since that's my opinion, it doesn't, there's not really like facts here don't really make any sense to you can't really cite any kind of, like, even research cited on this is not this can only be taken over a tiny sample size and is on a tiny set of sample dates. So it's really hard to validate much of these claims for or against, but I will reason to believe, I'll go out on a limb that it will be bad for us in the long term. So I don't know. If kind of these people that believe in absolute progress is, all progress is good progress, and no matter what, as long as its progress is good, it's a foolish ideology to live by and to push. I think there needs to be some amount of thought that goes into quote unquote progress before we do that. And it's not to say that you can't conflate like the progress of technology with the progress of like human well-being, because those are not one-to-one, right? Just because the technology has progressed and it is advanced technology, and whether that technology could mean anything, it could be farming equipment, it could be what, doesn't even matter what it is. Just because the technology is more advanced and quote unquote is more progressed does not mean it progresses the human well-being. And a lot of the fact that social relationships have been digitized and the catastrophic failure that's been for many people is just one example of how progress of technology and progress of humanity are at odds in some sense. So I don't know. I just feel like it's something that needs to be reiterated again and again. So I'm sorry if I keep bringing it up, but anyway. Another thing I need to dunk on real quick, and I'm not sure if I've belabored this before, but I'm going to jump on it again. The dumbest piece of technology ever created, in my opinion. This is, I guess I should be specific. The dumbest piece of hardware technology ever created. And this is like mass produced. I'm not talking about, I'm sure there is a nichely produced smart butt plug that I would probably put in the dumbest thing ever created. But a piece that is widely known and used by lots of people, a piece of hardware technology that I think is the dumbest thing of all time. So take your guesses, put in your guesses now. It is the iPad, the tablet, whatever, the dumbest piece of hardware technology. And let me tell you why. So there is a clear distinction in my mind between production devices and consumption devices. And devices that are solely geared for consumption have no positive effect. Consuming is not a inherently good thing for humans in any sense of the word. This is consuming media and ad nauseum. This is consuming food, ad nauseum. insert whatever here. Consuming it endlessly is never a good thing. And the iPad is perhaps no more unified of a piece of hardware that is purely designed for consumption. I will never hear, and I don't often speak in absolutes, but I am certain that I will not hear a valid spokes reason on behalf of why or what you could do on an iPad that could not be done more effectively on a different piece of technology. So, reading. Okay, one example would be like, the Amazon Fire Kindle or something like that. Sure, economically, it might be more efficient. It might sound or feel more efficient if you bought a Kindle to store all your books instead of buying the books themselves or just reading it on a desktop computer. So first off, books don't run out of battery life. So you have to, not to mention like the mental labor required to keep some stupid tablet thing charged. Books also don't give off light that could keep you awake and ruin your sleep schedule and circadian rhythm. So I'm not sure why anyone would want to read on a tablet when they should be reading on a book. And also because it's so easy for you to add and kind of just create this whole library of books, and like things are so cheap on there, I'd almost be willing to bargain that people would probably spend more money on these stupid Kindles and ebook readers or whatever than they might if they had actually just bought the hardcover book. And let's be honest, how many books are you really reading? And if so, if it's all about the number of books you read and not the quality of them or how much you get out of those books, then again, I don't think there's benefit in just having more books on there. Either you're never going to read all of them, so you're wasting money on things that you're never going to get to use. You're going to get no benefit out of it because you bought 80 books for $2 a pop. It's $160 when you could have just bought 4 actual hardcover books and read them and not had to deal with battery life, not had to deal with any of the other concerns. Not to mention, I'm ignoring the whole privacy things because I've beaten that horse to death. And of course, these Kindles could lock you out at any point, or they could delete your books, or they could I don't know. They could, and again, like I said, these big tech companies are data companies. So I bet you there was even releases that, like press releases about Kindles that would, basically tell Amazon what book you're reading, what page you're on. So if you're reading 1984, Amazon knows that. And there was actually something in 2009 where they deleted thousands of copies of people bought 1984 on their Kindles, and Amazon just deleted them. And obviously that's like, it's not a conspiracy either. That's like a real, like a news event. You can look it up. Which again, so like the fact that that's even possible should be like, immediate red flag number one. Like, why would you ever want those? So, and I guess the other thing about just reading in general. So again, I'm kind of dunking on the reading portion of ebook readers. I'll get to the other functions of iPads in a minute, but starting with like the book argument, like, it's, you can read books on it. What was I just saying? I totally forgot. Damn it. So, okay. Reading the books on the iPad is dumb. I'll remember the other point I was talking about earlier. So, okay, what else are you doing on an iPad that, again, isn't already accomplished with a phone or with a computer, right? You're not doing anything. You're not, like, doing any work on an iPad, meaning that, like, even like whatever your work is, is it editing Excel documents? Is it writing, newspaper articles? Is it coding? You can't do any of that on a fucking iPad. And if you could, you'd be 6,000 times more productive on just an actual laptop or a desktop computer. So you can't, where there's a keyboard input that is not, doesn't take up half the screen when you try to type something. So like the productivity work argument for iPads has no merit. Like you'd be better off using any other piece of technology than an iPad for your work. So the reading part of it is super dumb. The productivity part of it is super dumb. No, this is what I forgot. I just forgot again. Wow, I don't know what's wrong with my memory right now. Sorry, I keep like thinking of too many things at once and tripping over my own thoughts. But yeah, the work argument is also stupid. Oh, here's what I was talking about: the quality versus quantity of books. So this is a little aside that doesn't really have much to do with the actual like why I don't like them, but more so just on like the whole like book reading culture. Now, for some reason, all of a sudden, it is all about the number of books you read. You go on LinkedIn, you see these clowns talking about how many books they read. I read 6 books in 6 days, or I read 40 books. First of all, I read a number of books even just in the last couple months, and I can now confidently say that some of these books suck. And as much as they were lauded and they had all these New York Times bestseller, this and that, they're not good books. Okay, they're written they're written by brain dead people for brain dead people, peddling a lot of crap that is stupid. And I regret reading some of the books that I have. I'm glad that I read them in the sense that I now know what maybe a waste of time book looks like. But at the same time, to act like, just because you read 6 books, all of a sudden you're getting like 6 times the value if I had read 1 book. I think you would actually get more value. Let's say you had 3 book readings to work with. I think you would get more value if you read 1 book, 1 good book 3 times through, than you would if you read 3 different books at whatever speed. Because here's the thing: a lot of these books, not only are they super verbose to get that 250. I don't know if there's some like book equivalent to the 10-minute YouTube video thing where people gotta just extend their books to 250 pages so they can they have that thickness to them or something. Either way, 80 of these pages are totally redundant. You don't need, it doesn't need to be this long. Make it shorter. For God's sakes, you're not saying anything with most of this. Your language is super flowery, and you pick 4 dumb examples to use or something. Littered with survivorship bias. So first of all, the verbosity of these books is hard enough to get through. Not to mention that, people read these books and then they can't tell me a single thing about them. They just tell them like, oh, they have like 2 sentences to describe the book. And it's clear that you could have gotten more out of that book had you read it twice or 3 times. And that seems to not, be mentioned on anyone's radar. All of a sudden they just, you can read a book once and you've absorbed everything to its peak, and if you read something twice, you're like dumb or something because you didn't get it the first time. If anything, you get more out of the book reading it more than once. So these people that run around and talk about how great they are because they read 6 books in 4 days or something, the number of books you read does not mean you've absorbed that much. If I see one person talk about how they read 58 books last year or something, I know that person's a moron. Because there's no way you got anything out of those books. Maybe you got like a sentence or something from like 3 or 4 of those books. I promise they would have gotten more value if they had read 20 books and read each of them like 3 times instead of reading 58 different books once. And the other thing about reading books is I'm even guilty of this myself. I've finished reading books that I start because I want to just say I finished reading them. A lot of books I've started, I wanted to put them down and be like, this is kind of a dumb book. I don't think it's for me because the audience is like, I'm not the audience that this guy's going for, so I'm not going to get much out of it. But I read it, I finish it, only almost just out of being cordial to the author. Because if the first sentence of the book is like, oh, you want to be big time CEO, don't you? Then you're going to need to do this, hard work and all. I'm like, dude, I'm not the audience for this. Clearly, I'm sure there's some brainwashed fool out there who's going to believe that if you follow these steps, he's going to be CEO of Tesla or something. That person's an idiot. That's not the book for me. And I read that as the first sentence, and I really should put the book down and be like, this is dumb, I'm not going to read it. But I don't, and I finish it only out of obligation because I bought it and all this other stuff. So, I don't know. I'm going to try and get better at just not finishing books out of, just the fact that I bought them, and actually finish the ones that I want to finish, and reread ones that were actually good. Because out of the books that I have read, there have been, I want to say the ratio is probably about, 3 out of every 10 books I read. 3 of them are good, and I should read them again. They live up to the hype. The other 7 are shit, or they're just like, they're not worth their weight in that sense. Like they might have, 20 pages of actually decent content or ideas, or 20 pages worth out of whatever 350 or 250 pages that they are. So it's the verbosity of it doesn't justify the actual value I'm getting from, this book. So I don't know. I think that if you're, getting an iPad or this Kindle because you want to read 60 books and you read a lot of books, rethink reading a lot of books, right? I think you can read books a lot, right? But just reading a lot of books doesn't mean you're going to learn anything from it. And it's ironic. People that read all these books tend to like to not ever change their opinions on anything and be super predictable because they don't, blowing it through once and say you read it doesn't mean you've absorbed any of it. So I don't know. That was just an aside on that. So yeah, that was the last thing I had to say on the whole ebook reader thing. So it's probably good that you can't, more cheaply acquire 40 books on your Kindle reader because you don't need 40 books. You probably don't. I'd say with like 5 books, it should last you a long time, even if you read a lot, because you should read them again and absorb them and really people, especially writers because there are some writers out there, I'll give people credit, that are like their books are very dense and they're almost impossible to just read once through and absorb what they're talking about. Because you read a page and you're like, he said a lot there. Like I could spend probably, 10 or 20 minutes even just thinking about, 1 or 2 sentences that this guy put, because it's a very, they're very profound, deep books. And those authors, the ones that, books that you find like that, you almost need to read them several times before you've actually extracted even just half the value from it. So the idea that you need, 80 books to keep you busy at all times is stupid. So, okay, I've kind of debunked the reason you don't want, reason iPads and tablets are stupid for the reading purposes and the work purposes. If you have an iPad because it's got a camera on it, you're a moron. Okay, first of all, your phone probably has a camera that's just as good, if not better. And if you're that worried about the camera, buy a DSLR, because a stupid little iPad camera on a 2mm thick iPad, that camera is not going to be very, very good. And here's the thing about just phone cameras in general, and the reason that if people, the reason they have their phone is because they can take pictures of everything. If you're an Instagram model and you need to take pictures of everything, and your pictures need to be perfect, buy a DSLR, because the thickness of that camera is going to limit the quality of those photos no matter what. So if the photos are that important to you, and that's the whole reason you have your phone is just for your camera, then it's probably worth it for you to carry around a big ass camera and not justify having your phone around. That's more on phones than it is on iPads, but you're a true fool if you are justifying your use of an iPad by the camera. So that's the other thing. And I mean, what's the last thing? Games that you're going to play on there? I don't think I even need to go into why games on a tablet are a waste of time. And, maybe it's they calm me down or they're relaxing. If you're dependent on a mobile app on an iPad to calm you down or to be relaxed, there's something wrong with you. Think about that. So don't think that, it makes me feel better and I do this. Rethink everything. If that is where your mind is. So I don't really even want to go into why, or the details of why, if you're justifying your ownership of an iPad with, it's mobile games or, this mobile app or something. Apps, I mean, I cannot stress how useless apps are. And let's say there was some kind of application that, maybe I would even find use out of it. Maybe it's got the use of it. I guarantee you it is more useful, more practical, and more modular in every sense of the word on a laptop or a desktop computer. And whatever it is, it can probably wait. And if and to be honest, laptops or iPads aren't even really that much more mobile than a laptop. I'm sorry, an iPad is not that much more mobile than a laptop. So if you're gonna, go through the problem of carrying around a 14-inch iPad Pro, you might as well carry around a ThinkPad or, even a MacBook or something. So don't. If it actually is something that I would find value in, that'd be on a case by case thing. If there actually is something that I would think would be valuable, it will exist on a desktop, because no one that actually does anything important or useful is going to do anything on an iPad. I mean, name one scientific breakthrough that has happened on an iPad. Even name like a software program that was written on an iPad. There's nothing, because you can't make anything on that. The whole thing is designed for you to sit there and look at it and poke at it with buttons or something. The interaction with it is useless. And maybe you're texting people off your iPad. What's your phone for then? Right? Or, do it off your email people. Like, you don't need, the iPad is so frivolous, especially if you already have a laptop and a phone. What on earth could you need a laptop for? And then not only that, to make things more frustrating for my anti-iPad tirade, the iPad mini. I could not dream of a more useless piece. It is literally the phone, except like an inch wider. What are we doing? I mean, if that doesn't show you how progress of technology is asynchronous with progress of humanity, I don't know what is, because there's nothing you can say or do to justify to me why a mini iPad has any utility to anyone for any reason. And if they do, again, rethink. There's a lot more you need to rethink. Then, oh my God. Nothing. Plus, they're like expensive. Like they charge even more for these stupid iPad minis, or even maybe it's like $100 less or something. Again, buying it to begin with is inexcusable. And if you buy an iPad mini, I have no hope for you. I mean, it's, oh my God. Anyway, I'll end my tirade on. Oh, whoops! This Wolfie died. I'll end my tirade on iPads, but I hate them. I think they're useless. And again, this comes from a converted user. I remember I was like 12, and I saved up. I still obviously like Minecraft. I think I was like 10 or 11. I saved up, I think like $650 to buy an iPad, and I bought it. And I loved it because I could play Minecraft on it, and it was bigger than my little Samsung Galaxy. I had like a Samsung Galaxy, it wasn't the phone, it was like the knockoff iPod Touch, but it was like way cheaper. That's what I had. I had a Samsung Galaxy Pro or something, not a Pro, it was Samsung Galaxy something. I forgot, whatever the iPod equivalent is. And I remember I played Minecraft on it, and I was like, man, this would be so much better if it was bigger. So I saved up and bought an iPad. And if I could go back in time and slap myself in the face, I would, because I would have had myself buy literally a laptop. Because also, I was playing Pocket Edition. I played Pocket Edition for the first, 5 years probably. Why would I do that? Literally, the better version of Minecraft is on the computer. So I literally should have just bought a crappy laptop or something. I honestly could have bought a pretty good one for, the $600 or something I spent. I was just brainwashed into thinking the iPad was good. It was a marketing ploy that worked on 12-year-old me. So again, I'm a converted... I liked the idea of an iPad enough to buy one, but now I could not have turned around faster on that, or could not have turned around harder on that idea. I suppose it took me a while to do that, but anyway, my rant is over on iPads. My God, what a useless piece of technology. All right, I guess hopefully I don't get too fired up with this one, but this is also kind of a topic that is obnoxious. Social acceptance. I don't fit squarely into someone that is always socially accepted. I would like to say I would say that in many scenarios I can fit in here. I'm not the somebody that always sticks out as the weirdo. Or in some ways, I'm in a lot of ways I am. In most contexts, I'm socially accepted. So it's not like this is coming from like the weirdo side of things. But that being said, I think. Externally, even if I fit in, internally, I do not associate very closely with social acceptance standards by any means. I tend to violate them at will. I don't not do things because they're of social acceptance and whatnot. And it's a kind of a collective fear-mongering tactic that works a lot because people don't do things. And I guess the use case and the example that I'm going to start with this. Which, again, there's kind of a million examples. So I'm at a educational institution, a university, and I'm talking with this guy this MBA student, so some business student. He was in venture vulture capital for a few years, or private equity or something, and then And then now he's at business school, and he's decided he wants to start a business, and what he said to me, which is what kind of started this whole thing. And this wasn't even like yesterday. This was a while ago. It's been something that that I think about. He said, "Oh, it's a socially acceptable time and place to start a business," and so that raises a few kind of red flags in my mind. So first, the guy is like, this either means that he had this business idea, whatever it might be, Airbnb for anuses or some stupid. I mean, I don't even. God knows what these business ideas are anymore. He theoretically could have had this business idea earlier, and then decided not to act on it because it's not a socially acceptable thing, to leave your private equity job and start a company. Which, by the way, it is. If anything, it's people like applaud people to do that. They think, whatever. So, for one, the guy is arguably kind of a coward because he had to be in a socially acceptable position in order to start his company. If you're, you should have just done it immediately when it was time. You don't have to wait to be socially accepted for things to happen. Social acceptance is stupid. It's fleeing. And if you spend your whole life trying to fit into some mold of social acceptance, you're going to be outcast at every turn. So I would never use that as a litmus test for doing or not doing anything. I wouldn't control any of your behavior based off of social acceptance at all. But anyway, the other alternative is that this isn't really like a business idea he dreamt up of and decided not to act on it. It was that he, is in business school and, wants to make money. So even more plausible timeline was that he, finished undergraduate, worked at the venture capital firm for a while, made some money, because his uncle got him in there, his dad is there, whatever. He nepotized his way in, and then he realized, $160K for, buying and selling businesses and, raising rent on people, that's not enough. Daddy tells me I need to go to business school to get an MBA. So I'm going to go to business school, and I realize I can make even more money with Airbnb for anuses. So I'm going to do that instead. And it either comes off as the guy is a coward or he's doing it as a cash grab, which is the ultimate two ways that it boils down. And so this is just one example of the kind of, either, again, kind of in both ways, the guy is not high on my list of people to look up to, but it kind of originates with the idea of social acceptance and the fact that I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, thinking that he had this idea a long time ago and decided not to do it because of social acceptance is stupid, and is in many ways is I don't want to say necessary evil, but it is something that you will be punished for ignoring, but it is still evil, right? I think. And especially with how fleeting and quickly social acceptance standards change, it is only a matter of time before I am labeled an extremist. If not already, I'm probably already an extremist in some right, which is kind of is weird for me to think about because I don't consider myself an extremist. I consider myself a reasonable person who tries to think about things and comes to a conclusion that that makes sense on some fronts. Again, my mind has changed on things. I'm not some like wacko extremist that has some, ridiculous, I don't even know, like I'm not a schizophrenic with some, weird mental problems. I consider myself a normal person, but at any point, some social hierarchy, whoever is in the clouds up there deciding what's socially acceptable, what's not, could say, your time's over. You're now a weirdo, and we're gonna, I don't even know, stop you from doing whatever. We're gonna pressure you into not doing XYZ, which is why I find it more freeing and better just to ignore it altogether. I truly don't care whether things are socially accepted or not. And I mean, even like the idea of this YouTube channel, like, first of all, being a non-15-year-old with a Minecraft YouTube channel is kind of socially unacceptable in its own right. Not to mention, recording, 55-minute videos of you talking to yourself about a clusterfuck of random topics to nobody, is probably not on the list of socially acceptable behaviors. If I meet somebody and they go, "Oh, what do you do?" And I say, "Oh, I run this Minecraft YouTube channel, but it's not like you think, it's like a kind of a half let's play and like this other weird thing." that's not, I obviously never lead off conversations that way because everyone's going to be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Which again, I don't, again, it's not my intro, but it's unfortunate that it shouldn't be. And I guess the social acceptance does kind of, it is, I say it is necessary. Oh, shite. It is necessary in some ways because or not even necessary, it can't not exist, right? We have, like, to have a society is to have social acceptance norms of some kind. So it's not like I'm advocating that they are all, like, we can somehow abolish all social norms and everything is accepted, because to be fair, there is a lot of weird behavior that I don't really externally accept immediately. But I think using that as a strict guidelines for what to do or not to do, or how to live your life, using it as on a how to live your life controller basis is foolish. Not to say that you should always violate social norms, or if you have some weird fetish, you should just indulge it at all times. No, I'm obviously not saying that. I just think that it should be a secondary thought. So first things first, be true to your own self and your things. And if it's, if your weird fetish is that much a part of your life, then, the person you're talking to is going to find out sooner or later. So you might as well, just throw the whole social acceptance thing out the window. But secondarily, obey social norms to the extent necessary, because obviously we don't want people. There is kind of a tit for tat, a social exchange. It is that makes it easier to talk to people. But and I suppose one concern, a lingering concern I have with social acceptance norms in general is that because they are fleeting and changing a lot, and they're becoming increasingly digitized. I've even noticed that even in, like, face-to-face, in-person interactions, which, we used to just call them just interactions, but now I have to specify that it is not an online chat room. It's literally just in person. It feels weird to talk to anyone unless you have, like, probable cause. So it's almost like, a cop can pull you over because they have probable reason that you are doing something illegal, whatnot. And unless you have probable reason to talk to a person, in the same way that a cop should have probable concern that you're doing something illegal, you can't talk to them, kind of thing. So I think even something as simple as, like, oh, that's a cool shirt, and I would never say that because I really don't pay attention to what people wear. I don't care about that. But hypothetically, if I did, or maybe if it was a really cool shirt, what if it had, like, a Rusty Buckets 30 thing on it? I'm not selling shirts, by the way. Maybe I will later. But I say, oh, it's a cool shirt. Now I feel like I can't even say that because, the social acceptance is like, you could be a creep, whatever, or, there's no, like, you don't kind of have this innocent until proven guilty thing. Again, it's kind of like the cop that has to have probable cause to pull you over. You have to have probable cause to talk to somebody for anything. You can't just, because otherwise you're kind of a creep. And, the part that is obnoxious to me is that I even, like, have kind of internally accepted this as my own. So it's not like if somebody came up to me and was just talking to me, I respond in the way that is, again, kind of socially accepted, to be like, who the fuck are you and why are you talking to me, kind of thing. So I've even, like, I'm even kind of going against my own first principles here in that, and I have no excuse other than it's it's difficult to not. It's something I've had trouble with not assimilating to in terms of things that have. Sorry, these pigmen are very distracting. Things that I've assimilated or not assimilated to into society. So it's something that I even kind of get the heebie-jeebies about when some random person talks to me. I wish it would was as simple as someone could just walk up and say something to me and I wouldn't be like who the fuck are you? But again, that's my first thing in my head is who's this person? Same with me going up to someone else. I can't just say, hey, nice shirt. It's always like, is this person a threat, or is there some, maybe it's just like the next step of the whole stranger danger thing that, because people are getting kidnapped, and now it's like any stranger is automatically danger, right? There's not this kind of probable innocence, and I don't know. Maybe it's all in my head too. It's possible that the people are all so accepting of strangers coming up to them and talking to them for any reason, But it's you generally don't have a reason. I guess where I was thinking about this was like in the gym. some guy is, because sometimes you go and say, hey, how many sets do you have left, kind of thing. But unless you're, asking somebody how many sets do you have left, like it's kind of socially unacceptable to talk to anybody at the gym. Meaning like you just, mind your own business. And the people that go around to talk to people, I don't know if it's just, again, my own hurdle that I have to get over. But again, they're kind of the weirdos here. People that like stop people's exercise sets to be, hey, where'd you go to school? Who is this clown? Like, get out of here. Let people, leave them alone, kind of thing. And again, I wish it was more of a way that even myself was like, it's okay to just say, hey, what's going on? Just because it's more difficult now to meet people in any in-person setting. But the social acceptance standards have had a noticeable impact on a lot of social interactions now, which is why it's easy for boomers and people that grew up without the age of the internet to be like, oh, just go out and talk to people, make friends. It's easy. It's weird now. Okay, like you peddling an MLM in the 60s versus talking to people now. It's people don't have that auto stranger danger feeling, and they're not. They don't go places just to happy-go-lucky to talk to everybody to make friends. It's kind of seen as weird. At first glance, which again, I'm not saying is good. I wish it wasn't that way, but that's the way it is. So, I guess there's nothing I can do about it, but except either become the weirdo or just continue the same, continue what I'm already doing, which is kind of treating it as weird. So I don't know. So I suppose the last thing that I can that I want to talk about is the something I've kind of noticed, or not even really noticed, something maybe another conjecture of mine that I'm coming up with here. I think some people, and I have to say some people just because I can't say everyone, they find the desire and the focus on having children as a means of having some level of control in their lives. So take an example of somebody who is feels powerless at their job, powerless in their, whatever context. And now they have this perfectly malleable little mini human that they can inject all of their insecurities and their ideologies and all their stuff. And these people, these little mini humans just have to believe whatever they have to say. So it's kind of the ultimate form of, control. And I think in some people, maybe it's a sadistic thought of mine, but I think some people have children for the sole need of, I don't feel validated or I don't feel in control of my life. So I'm just going to make a mini version of me so that I can control something. And if nothing else, I can control that little kid and make him believe whatever I want. So you get these kids that grow up with these ridiculous thoughts and tendencies and things, only because their parents were had a child or children out of a lack of control, and now controlled you in every step of the way. And obviously, there's I hope a large majority of parents that don't have children for that reason. They have children because if they want to reproduce and they want to kind of pass on their bloodline, and I don't know, they need more hands on the farm or something like that. But I'm sure there's some subset of parents that have children so that they have control over something, and then they get to boss around something. It doesn't matter how stupid or illogical any of the things are, because they're maybe it's someone that's getting laughed at by their fellow adults, but the kid from the second it leaves the womb can be indoctrinated into whatever you want it to be. It's an untouched piece of clay that you can mold to whatever weird things that you want. And I obviously pity the children that grow up in a in that kind of environment where it's they weren't conceived for any noble cause. They were conceived so out of a selfish reason in some sense, for their parents to have control over something, and then they just take things out on their child. So I don't know. I just feel like I needed to mention that as a concept. I hope it's not as prevalent as it is potentially. Like, again, I hope it's not 50% of parents are people that are powerless and so they have kids to dominate something. But I presume there is a non-zero percentage of the adult population of parents that that really crave, or at least get a big kick out of, just being it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how stupid or whatever this idea is. I'm right because I'm the parent, no matter what. So I don't know. Poor kids that have to do that. So, yeah, because I know that these people exist. Because it is kind of it's kind of a common sense conclusion. It's not something I have a bunch of data to back up. But also, you can, if you look around and you talk to people, you can kind of get a sense of who like some people's parents are crazy, and you can get that through their conversation. You can get that even just through their own thought process and ideology. And you're like, who the fuck raised you? Like, oh my God, like what was wrong with them? And seeing that, you can kind of I draw this conclusion that some parents have kids again to have something to control. So it's a funny, interesting, or scary thought. I don't know. You can kind of view it however you want, but the way I get myself out of a cynical, nihilistic view is to try and approach things with humor. So it's be easier for me to say, oh, it's oh, how sad, something. I guess it's kind of funny because these people tend to be interesting in some way, whether it's a good or bad way. I guess interesting people are interesting people, whether they're good or bad, or economically valuable or not, or whatever. I don't know, neurodivergent, I suppose, if you want to call them that. It doesn't matter. It's sometimes refreshing to have people that are interesting, to say the least. So I don't know. Maybe I'm one of those people. And it won't be because of my parents. My parents are fine. I could just be one of the weirdos because I nurtured myself to be the weirdo. I wasn't naturally the weirdo, or maybe vice versa. I don't know. You can make your own conclusions about that. That is up to you and not me. Anyway, I'll wrap it up there. Hopefully I wasn't too extremist this time. I kind of got on my soapbox there about the iPads, but I honest to God think they're the dumbest pieces of technology we've ever created. And if you have an iPad and you honest to God think there's a practical, useful, good for you reason that you need the iPad, let me know. And I will be the arbiter of whether or not there is a lower tech or even better tech solution for you, or if what you're doing is stupid, aka if your thing is, oh, I need to play Clash of Clans on it. Stupid. Okay. Not only can you do that on the phone, but you certainly don't need to be doing that in the first place. But anyway, that's all I'll say on that. So if you have an iPad, sell it, get a computer, and actually do something on it. So production is better than consumption. Anyway, later. See you guys next time. Peace out.